I think that it's important to keep in mind that if you don't allow your brain to generate very bizarre, very random, and very unusual thoughts, you're going to fall into the trap of the idea that your self-worth is really at issue here. One of my clients yesterday said to me, I know why I'm a puro, I know why I'm an OCD, it's because I've never liked myself. And she said that if she liked herself, then her obsessive thoughts about, am I a person of my age equal to all other people my age, or am I less? That obsessive question. If she felt like she liked herself, then she would never have to worry about whether she was okay or a failure or better than anyone else. And I suggested to her that 99% of the population doesn't like themselves. So that's not necessarily where it comes from. But if you fool around with the concept of self-worth, if you decide to dabble in the idea that maybe you can one day like yourself, as an obsessional thinker, you set yourself up to maintain the problem. I would propose to you that any effort, whether it be obsessional or just self-esteem, to improve your adequacy or to improve your self-life sets you up for a never-ending life of esteem, misery, or worthlessness. But that's a whole other lecture. The pure obsessional thinker experiences generally a two-part process. One is the spike, which lasts probably 0.3 seconds. And in response to the spike is what I call the rumination. And what the rumination involves is, how can I escape this spike? Let's say for the person who has the reoccurrent thought of stab my mother, or kill my daughter. Excuse me, that thought in and of itself tends to be associated with an extreme amount of anxiety, and also the idea that, well, how can I get rid of this thought? And it's in the rumination that you really have the problem. I say to people over and over again that if you look at the spike as being the problem, you set yourself up to never really getting better. Because I don't believe at all that we can ever stop ourselves from thinking something. And any effort that we make to not think about something paradoxically increases the likelihood of us thinking about it and increases our brain sensitivity to this being something to really watch for and to being tolerant of. So a lot of times in the beginning of therapy, people will want their spikes to decrease, and people will want their spikes to go away. And they do a lot of monitoring of how many spikes did I have today. And I continuously point out to these people that having the spike is something that can't be controlled and is best off not being monitored at all. If you have 100 spikes in a day and a spike lasts 0.3 seconds, if you think about it, you're only taking up about 2 minutes of your entire day. But it's the rumination that really is the... Were you going to say something? It's the rumination that's really the problem with this disorder. And it's in the rumination that people can spend 8 hours a day trying to figure out ways of either answering the question or avoiding having the thought reoccur. In the article that I wrote, I proposed a diagram which I believe explains why the pure obsessional thinker gets themselves into trouble over and over and over again. And in the diagram, is that a board I can write on? Who here has read my article? Anyone? People? I propose that the brain has what I call the resource part, and what what I mean by the resource part of the brain is the idea, it's kind of like an idea generator. A way of kind of verifying this part of the brain's existence is, if I were to look for a name, as I think we all do on occasion, let's say I'm looking for, who is the star of the movie What About Bob? Not Bob, but who was this psychiatrist? I don't remember his name. So I'm looking for that information, and I say to myself, forget it, I'm not going to find it. 2 hours later, I could be in the middle of working on a model, and all of a sudden, bam, the name will pop into my head. That has to suggest that there's a part of the brain that can very much process information without us looking for it. I call it a memory trace. Because I'm looking for that psychiatrist, that actor's name, but I'm looking in the wrong channel. And when I stop looking in that channel and have my consciousness go somewhere else, that memory trace will go into other channels that I've not thought of. And when it finds the pertinent information, then it sends it back to my consciousness. So I become aware of it. And I would suggest to you that I have no choice but to experience that spike. Oh yeah, it was Richard Dreyfuss. And I just spiked on it right now, as a matter of fact. I hadn't remembered it, but I was kind of thinking what it was. Oh yeah, it was Richard Dreyfuss. And I have no capacity to stop that spike from hitting me. And it's very important that you understand that this is an uncontrolled event. There's no way to stop it from happening, and there's no way that this has ultimate meaning. Because if I look at a knife and that uncontrolled event spikes into my consciousness to stab someone, I can just theorize, without being an analyst, that, I saw the movie Psycho and that shower scene really impressed me. And so maybe now when I see knives, I just get an association. Maybe when I see trains, I remember a few years ago a number of people were committing suicide that way, and it was reported on the news. And so when I'm at a train platform, my brain says to me, here's an option. Not necessarily because I'm depressed, but because it says this is significant. So the spike says to my consciousness, you might want to know about this. And I think that that's it. I think that it has no other meaning whatsoever. And when I experience the spike, I have two choices to make based on a philosophy of how my brain works. If I don't have a sophistication about the way the brain kind of functions, I can say, oh my God, jump in front of a train, what does this say about me? And does this mean that I'm suicidal? Does this mean that I'm losing control of my mind? And in that response, I call that an emotional response. I'm going to experience a tremendous amount of anxiety because I'm going to feel like I'm losing control of my mind, that it's functioning beyond my capacity to sort of sway it in a direction that I want it to be. And so if I'm going to engage in the philosophy that these spikes are meaningful, I'm going to get very, very upset over this thought. And so what does that do? But it sends back to that part of my brain that looks for important information, look for this thought to occur. Because this is important, and so you've got a wonderful, endless cycle of jumping in front of the train is an important cognitive event, send it to my consciousness, I get upset, and therefore it becomes even more important. You've got a wonderful vicious cycle. And if I even say to myself, well, how can I not think about it? You're doing exactly the same thing, because your brain is now saying, okay, find out when you're not thinking about it so you can be rewarded. And often with my clients, I'll hear them say when they're getting better, boy, I experienced an hour of relief, but when I noticed the relief, I got the spike. And I say, of course you did it. I would anticipate that that'd be the case, because your brain is now saying something's amiss here, something's going on that I'm not used to, I'm not spiking, and so it will send you the spike. And a lot of times they say, I got a spike, and then kind of get this forlorn look on their face like, and I thought I was doing so well. And that suggests that even after this amount of time, they still haven't gotten it, that the spike isn't the problem.